We know that speed is the amount of distance covered in a given amount of time. In other words, distance covered over the time taken to cover that distance. Simply put, it tells us how fast an object moves. Also, if we know the speed and time taken to cover a distance, we can easily find the distance covered. So if I tell you that I traveled at a speed of 50 meters per second for 1 minute, can you tell me how much distance I covered? That's right. I've covered a total distance of 3,000 meters. But if I covered 3,000 meters from this point, am I here, or over there? You have no clue as to which direction I headed it. This tells us that speed offers only magnitude, making it what we call in physics a scalar quantity. It doesn't specify the direction. It just tells us how much ground is covered in the given time, regardless of the direction traveled in. Scalar quantities only cover magnitude and do not specify direction. It's similar to the difference between distance and displacement. Remember that distance just tells us the space covered, but displacement is distance with direction. For example, the distance between towns A and B is 20 kilometers. If we take a 50-kilometer route from point A to B like this, then the distance covered is 50 kilometers. But the displacement is 20 kilometers north of point A. Just like that, speed does not tell us the direction. So, what tells the speed along with direction? Velocity. That's right. It can be written as lowercase v. Let's see how it differs from speed. If I told you that I traveled north at a speed of 50 meters per second for 1 minute, would you be able to tell me where I end up? Yes, you would. Yes, you could tell me I have covered a total distance of 3,000 meters and landed at this point. Velocity is speed with a direction of motion. So we can say velocity is direction aware. When you mention velocity, you must keep track of direction. Like the car traveled south at 55 miles per hour. If you don't mention the direction and just say the car moved at 55 miles per hour, then you're not referring to velocity. What you're stating is just the speed. What do you think is the unit of measurement for velocity? The unit of measurement for velocity is the same as that for speed. Meters per second. Now you might wonder why meters per second. The cars we drive indicate speed in miles per hour or kilometers per hour. So why is the unit for velocity meters per second as well? That's because the established SI unit of measurement for velocity is meters per second. SI stands for International System of Units. This helps everyone in the world follow one common style of measurement. Imagine the confusion that would be created with different measurements, like miles and kilometers, gallons and liters, etc. Incidentally, speed and velocity are both measured in meters per second. But do you remember which one is a scalar quantity and which one is a vector quantity? Yep, speed is a scalar quantity and the velocity is a vector quantity, since the direction is also specified. Now, what about average velocity? To make it easier for you, we'll look at an example. You have to travel 20 kilometers up north, but because of a roadblock, you took an alternative path that totaled 50 kilometers and took you 2 hours to reach the destination. This was your path of travel. Let's make 2 columns here, one for average speed and another for average velocity. Do you remember how to calculate average speed? It's total distance covered over the total time taken. So 50 over 2, and that gives us 25 kilometers per hour as the average speed. But what about average velocity? Average velocity only depends on the point you start and end, regardless of the path taken. Remember what we discussed about displacement? The average velocity equals displacement over time. What's the displacement here? It's 20 kilometers up north. Distance with direction. So the average velocity will equal 20 kilometers over 2 hours, which is equal to 10 kilometers per hour. If you think you've really understood this concept, here's a question for you. You're a Formula One race car driver. You had a great race and finished the 300 kilometers race in 1 hour and 40 minutes at first place. What was your average velocity? Okay, if you didn't get it, let me give you a hint. This was your start point and finish line as well. They're both the same. You went around the track several times only to eventually finish at the same point where you started. So, what was your average velocity? How about you tell me first what your displacement was? You started and finished at the same point, so your displacement was 0. 0 divided by the time taken, that's 1 hour and 40 minutes, equals 0. That's your average velocity for the race today at 0 meters per second. If, however, you're trying to calculate the speed you drove at, that would be a different answer. Try and work it out. Now, let me ask you another question. I was also in the race, and you probably didn't notice me because I finished last. I took 3 hours to finish. What was my average velocity? That's correct, 0 again.